अस्सलाम वालेकुम डियर स्टूडेंट्स, वेलकम टू ऑल ऑफ़ यू। क्लास 12th इकोनॉमिक्स का आज का हमारा टॉपिक है। हम पढ़ रहे थे इसमें जो आज का हमारा टॉपिक होने वाला है दैट इज़ द केस व्हेन एवरेज रेवेन्यू इज़ नॉट कांस्टेंट। हम पढ़ रहे थे द कंसेप्ट ऑफ रेवेन्यू। उसमें हमने देखा था परफेक्ट कंपटीशन में कि एवरेज रेवेन्यू जो है इट रिमेन्स कांस्टेंट और एवरेज रेवेन्यू इज इक्वल टू प्राइस बिकॉज द प्राइस इज गिवन अंडर द perfect competition market, or the firms are price takers. They cannot determine their own prices or set their own prices. But what will happen if average revenue is not constant? Just like under monopoly and monopolistic competition, where the sellers or monopolists or a monopoly or the firms have some freedom in setting up the price. Price may be declining or decreasing as more units of the output is sold. Under monopoly and monopolistic price which is actually equal to average revenue in perfect competition, it will tend to decrease as more is sold, as more units of the output of goods are sold. Under monopoly and monopolistic price or average revenue will decrease as more units of the output are sold. In such a situation we will have a table like the following, which shows the total average and marginal revenue when average revenue is not constant. So for example, when we are selling first unit of the output, price is equal to or average revenue is equal to 10. Total revenue TR is equal to total revenue is equal to average revenue multiplied by units of output sold. When we are selling for one unit, prices or average revenue is 10, total revenue will also be 10. Marginal revenue will be equal to 10. यानी when we are selling 0 units, तो उस वक्त हमारा टोटल रेवेन्यू एवरेज रेवेन्यू भी जीरो होगा. जब हम पहला यूनिट सेल कर रहे हैं तो टोटल रेवेन्यू में जो चेंज आई है दैट इज़ बाई 10, तो एवरी मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू भी 10 होगा. तो इसी तरह से जब हम 2 यूनिट्स सेल कर रहे हैं, 2 यूनिट्स बेच रहे हैं, तो हमारा टोटल रेवेन्यू है 19. नाउ द एवरेज रेवेन्यू 19 डिवाइडेड बाई 2 इज इक्वल टू 9.5. एवरेज रेवेन्यू या प्राइस हमारा बन रहा है 9.5. नाउ द प्राइस और एवरेज रेवेन्यू हैज डिक्लाइंड फ्रॉम 10 to 9.5. आवर मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू इज has fallen from or has declined from 10 to 9 because the change in total revenue is from 10 to 19, that is by 9 units. So marginal revenue will be 9. When we are selling 3 units, total revenue is 27, marginal revenue is 9, that is 27 divided by 3, that is average revenue or price will be 9. Marginal revenue is 8, that is a change in total revenue is by 8 rupees or rupees 8. When we are selling 4 units of the output, total revenue is 34 divided by 4 is equal to 8.5. Now you can see that average revenue or price is continuously declining. Same is the case with marginal revenue, though the decline in marginal revenue is sharper than in average revenue. Now the average revenue, our average revenue is 7, that is change in total revenue is by 7 rupees. You can see in this table that average revenue or price is declining by 0.5 rupees from 10 to 9.5, from 9.5 to 9 to 8.5. But every marginal revenue declines from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7, that is by 1 rupee. Now we will have some relationships worked out here. In case average revenue is not constant but declining, marginal revenue is also declining. Now you can see in this table, when average revenue is declining, that means it is not constant, it is declining. Marginal revenue will also be declining. When average revenue is declining by 0.5, you can see in this table, when average revenue or price is declining by 0.5, marginal revenue is declining by 1 rupee. This proves that under monopoly and monopolistic competition, marginal revenue declines. इससे ये पता हमें चलता है कि marginal revenue इससे हमें ये पता चलता है कि मोनोपोलिस्टिक कंपटीशन की और मोनोपोलिस्टिक कंपटीशन और मोनोपोली में marginal revenue जो है it declines because the seller will decline his price or set a lower price for selling more and more units of the output to increase his sales. This proves that under monopoly and monopolistic competition, marginal revenue declines, and decline is faster than average revenue. You can see here that marginal revenue decline is faster than average revenue. Marginal revenue decline is by rupee 1 and marginal average revenue decline is by 0.5 rupees. So that average revenue is greater than marginal revenue. You can see that here average revenue is greater than marginal revenue when average revenue starts to decline, marginal revenue also starts to also declines, but the decline in marginal revenue is greater than average revenue. Therefore, average revenue remains above the marginal revenue. You can see after the decline, first both are same 10 10. Then it is average revenue is 9.5, marginal revenue is 9, average revenue is 9, marginal revenue is 8, average revenue is 8.5, marginal revenue is 7. You can see this. When marginal revenue is declining, we are adding less and less to total revenue. So, for example, when marginal revenue is declining, but it's still positive, we are adding less and less to total revenue for every additional unit sold, because a marginal revenue is declining. First, our addition to total revenue was 10, then 9, then 8, then 7. Therefore, the addition to total revenue will be less and less for every additional unit of output sold, so that total revenue increases only at a diminishing rate. Now, we can see the case, can marginal revenue be negative or zero? Can marginal revenue be 0 or negative? Yes, marginal revenue can be 0 or negative. Marginal revenue can be negative or 0. It is clear from the following illustration. यानी जैसे कि यहाँ पर टेबल में दिया हुआ है, मगर इसमें ये एक कंडीशन है कि marginal revenue can be 0 or negative only in monopoly or monopolistic competition, not in case of perfect competition market. Because in perfect competition, under perfect competition, prices are given, prices remain same, average revenue remains constant. Therefore, marginal revenue and average revenue will be same, which will be equal to price, which will remain constant, which will not decline. Therefore, in that case, marginal revenue cannot be 0 or negative. But in monopoly and monopolistic competition, it can be 0 or negative. Now, look at this table. Average revenue or price, देखिए आप पहले यहाँ पर फर्स्ट कॉलम में in rupees. Average revenue or price is 100. When we are selling first unit, our total revenue is 100. Now the average revenue or price has declined to sell 2 units. Price has declined from 100 to 80. Total revenue is 80 multiplied by 2 is equal to 160. To further increase the sales, that is from 2 to 4, average revenue or price has declined from 80 to 40. 40 multiplied by 4 is equal to 160. To further increase the sales from 4 to 5, now the price has further declined from 40 to 30. 30 multiplied by 5 is equal to 150. Now the marginal revenue can be calculated from this. First unit of the output, marginal revenue is 100. Because if we are selling 0 units, our total revenue will be 0. When we are selling first unit, our total revenue is 100. Therefore, total change in total revenue is by 100. That is our marginal revenue for first unit is 100. For the second unit, it is 60, because total revenue has increased from 100 to 160. Now from 100 to 160, therefore change in total revenue is say by 60, that is marginal revenue will be 60. For selling 4 units of the output, our total revenue is also 160. It remains same, it does not change, it remains the same, that is 160, because the price has declined from 80 to 40. Now the marginal revenue is 0. By selling 5 units of the output, price has further declined. Price has further declined when we are selling 5 units of the output. That price has dropped from 40 to 30. Now the total revenue has declined from 160 to 150. That is, our marginal revenue will be 150 minus 160. That will be equal to minus 10. Therefore, it has been proven that marginal revenue can be 0 or negative when average revenue or marginal revenue, average revenue is falling. When average revenue is falling, when average revenue or price falls or declines, in that case, marginal revenue may be negative or 0 in case of monopolistic competition or monopoly. मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू, जैसे कि यहाँ पर अभी आपकी की रिलेशनशिप देख सकते हैं, मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू कैन बी 0 और इवन नेगेटिव, बट ओनली व्हेन प्राइस इज डिक्लाइनिंग एज अंडर मोनोपोली और मोनोपोलिस्टिक कंपटीशन. इट कैन ओनली बी इन द केस ऑफ मोनोपोली और मोनोपोलिस्टिक कंपटीशन और वेयर द प्राइस इज डिक्लाइन. Where the prices decline or average revenue declines. Total revenue stops increasing when marginal revenue is 0. देखिए यहाँ पर आप कि marginal revenue जब 0 है तो total revenue has reached its maximum, that is 160. It cannot increase any further when marginal revenue is 0. So that total revenue is maximum when marginal revenue is 0. Total revenue starts declining when marginal revenue is negative. Once the marginal revenue has become negative, that is when we are selling 5 units of the output, now the total revenue will start declining. Marginal revenue has become negative, total revenue declines from 160 to 150. When marginal revenue is declining, less and less is added to total revenue for every additional unit sold. But when marginal revenue is declining, but is positive, डिक्लाइनिंग, नेगेटिव नहीं है अभी, डिक्लाइन हो रहा है मार्जिनल रेवेन्यू, लेस एंड लेस is added to total revenue for every additional unit sold. Accordingly, total revenue increases only at a diminishing rate. Now, these things can be illustrated with the help of a diagram. Figure 3 illustrates the relationship between total revenue, average revenue, and marginal revenue when price is not constant, as under monopoly and monopolistic competition. Part A of the figure shows the total revenue curve, while part B shows average and marginal revenue curve. जैसे कि आप यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं इस डायग्राम में, ये है फिगर 3, इसके ये दो पार्ट्स है, पार्ट ए अपर सेगमेंट एंड लोअर सेगमेंट इज पार्ट बी. Upper segment shows total revenue and output, and lower segment shows output and average and marginal revenue. On y-axis we measure on the lower section. On y-axis we measure average and marginal revenue, and on x-axis we measure output in the upper section, and that is part A of the diagram. On y-axis we measure total revenue, and on x-axis we measure output. Now up to point B in section A of the diagram, that is figure A of the diagram, or up to point B, total revenue curve is increasing at a decreasing rate. Total revenue curve is increasing at a decreasing rate. It is increasing at a decreasing rate because the marginal revenue is declining, because the marginal revenue is decreasing or declining. जैसे कि यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं लोअर सेक्शन में कि marginal revenue continuously decline हो रहा है up to point M, where it becomes zero. Afterwards, or towards the right of the point M, or below the x-axis, it becomes negative. But up to point M, it is declining. Up to point B, total revenue curve, section A of the diagram is in section A of the diagram, point up to point B. Total revenue curve is increasing at a decreasing rate. This is because marginal revenue is decreasing. At point B, total revenue is maximum. This is because marginal revenue is zero. यहाँ पर आप देखिए जब marginal revenue curve टच करती है x axis को at point M, it becomes zero. At the very same point, total revenue has reached its maximum in upper segment of the diagram, that is at point B. Beyond point B, total revenue starts declining. Beyond point B, now you can see to the rightwards of the point B, total revenue curve now slopes downwards. Now its slope has become negative. It now starts to decline because the marginal revenue has cut the x-axis, and now the marginal revenue has become negative. Total revenue will also start to decline. Total revenue will start to decline. Total revenue will start to, it will not be negative, but it will start to decline when the marginal revenue is negative. In a situation of zero price, average revenue touches x-axis. Accordingly, total revenue also touches x-axis. Now, in a situation of zero price, when price is zero, average revenue touches x-axis. Accordingly, total revenue also touches x-axis. जैसे कि यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं x. This may be the case of, so for example, government launching any scheme of free distribution of ration or free distribution of life-saving drugs. This may be the case, this may be applicable in that case when the average revenue is zero. Otherwise, average revenue, when average revenue is zero, it means that we are distributing goods free of any charge, or free of prices, without any charge. It may be case of a government in launching a free distribution of meals, or free food distribution, or free distribution of life-saving drugs. Now, when the diminishing marginal revenue curve becomes zero, when diminishing marginal revenue curve, जैसे कि यहाँ पर आप point M पर देख सकते हैं, when diminishing marginal revenue curve becomes zero, as is indicated by in figure B, figure 3, part B, by point M, total revenue will be maximum, as indicated by point B in figure 3A. जैसे कि यहाँ पर मैंने आपको ये दिखाया. Figure 3 also shows that when both average revenue and marginal revenue fall, then marginal revenue is less than average revenue. आप यहाँ पर ये देख सकते हैं, when average revenue and marginal revenue, these both curves are falling. They start from y-axis and both are falling. Both have negative slope. When these both curves are falling, marginal revenue will be lower than average revenue, or the decline in marginal revenue will be greater as compared to average revenue, or marginal revenue will decline faster than the average revenue, or average revenue will lie above the marginal revenue. Marginal revenue can be positive, zero, and negative, but average revenue is always non-negative. Average revenue cannot be negative. Average revenue cannot be negative. It will always be non-negative, but it can be zero. It can be zero. Obvious it is that total revenue is equal to zero. total revenue is zero when average revenue is zero. Thus, when average revenue touches x-axis, total revenue also touches x-axis. When average revenue touches x-axis, जैसे कि यहाँ पर AR करो टच करिए x-axis को, total revenue also touches x-axis. However, this is possible only, जैसे कि मैंने आपको बताया, this is possible when total revenue is zero या marginal revenue is zero. This can only be the case under some government intervention or government launching any free distribution of food or medicines, just like the case in government hospitals when the price is average revenue is zero. It means that we are distributing goods free of any charge. Otherwise, but ये जो average revenue it cannot be negative, but marginal revenue can be negative only in case where the prices or average revenue is declining, where the marginal revenue can be negative in case of monopolistic market and monopoly market. Relationship between total revenue, average revenue and marginal revenue. Discussion on the behavior of total revenue, average revenue and marginal revenue reveals the following relationship between these variants of revenue. Total revenue is equal to average revenue multiplied by units of output or summation of marginal revenues. Average revenue is equal to total revenue divided by units of output. Marginal revenue is equal to total revenue of n minus total revenue of n minus 1 units. When total revenue is increasing at constant rate, marginal revenue should be constant. जैसे कि हमने perfect competition में ये देख लिया, when total revenue is increasing at constant rate, marginal revenue should be constant. That means if price is constant or average revenue is constant, marginal revenue will be constant, which will lead to the total revenue increasing at a constant rate. When total revenue is increasing at diminishing rate, marginal revenue should be diminishing. Now, if the total revenue is increasing at a diminishing rate, it is increasing but at a diminishing rate. Suppose, for example, first it increases by 10 units, then by 9, then 8, then 7, then 6, then 5. This means the total revenue is though increasing, but increasing at a diminishing rate. If total revenue is increasing at diminishing rate, it shows that marginal revenue should be diminishing. When total revenue is maximum, marginal revenue is zero. When total revenue is diminishing, marginal revenue is negative. If total revenue starts to diminish, which it will imply that marginal revenue has become negative. जैसे कि यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं डायग्राम में, when total revenue reaches its point of यानी it is maximum point, that is point B in figure 3a, to marginal revenue is zero. Now once the total revenue starts to decline towards the point towards the right hand side of the point B, when total revenue starts to decline or total revenue now has negative slope or starts to decline, it will imply that marginal revenue has become negative. When total revenue is diminishing, marginal revenue is negative. When average revenue is sloping downward, marginal revenue curve should be below the average revenue curve, as in monopoly or monopolistic competition. जैसे कि आप यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं फिगर 3b part B में, when average revenue curve is sloping downwards from left to right. Now it starts from y-axis, slopes downwards from left to right till it touches the x-axis. When average revenue starts declining or slopes downward, marginal revenue curve will also slope downwards. Marginal revenue will also decline and will lie below the average revenue. Marginal revenue will lie below the average revenue. If average revenue is constant, marginal revenue is equal to average revenue. अगर average revenue constant रहता है तो marginal revenue बराबर होगा average revenue के, जैसे कि हमने पढ़ा था perfect competition में. Marginal revenue is equal to average revenue in perfect competition. Both are represented by a common horizontal line parallel to x-axis. जैसे कि perfect competition में हमने देखा कि price is equal to average revenue is equal to marginal revenue is equal to average revenue. perfect competition में उस केस में, उस सिचुएशन में फिर दोनों को हम एक ही लाइन से रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं, बिकॉज बोथ आर same line can be drawn to represent both marginal revenue and average revenue. Both are represented by a common horizontal straight line parallel to x-axis, जैसे कि लास्ट लेक्चर में हमने वो देखा था. ये था हमारा आज का टॉपिक. कल अगला टॉपिक हम लेकर आएंगे आपके पास. तब तक के लिए आप इसका रिवीजन कीजिए.